Welcome to our second night of OceanCon at the Oceanside Library. Tonight's program is how to create your own comic book or manga. Tonight we have our own author and artist of his comic books and graphic novels. He is a librarian by day at East Meadow Library and the owner of Day and Night Anime Studios by night. So we have Kelly Gordon, aka Mikkel Supreme, here with us tonight. Take it away.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you. Big shout out to the Oceanside Public Library and also hail Ocean Con. All right. Thank you very much. This is Mikhail Supreme from Night and Day Anime Studios. You know, I can say is that if you're looking at the slide there, you're looking at basically, journey of my adventures throughout the years after self-publishing my own comic book. Who am I? I mainly am an artist, a mentor, a teacher. I've been teaching teenagers and children and all ages how to draw, anime, comic book styles, things like that for over 10 years, probably even more than that. And also a con goer, big, huge fan of anime, pop culture, comic books. I remember when I was preteen, I used to walk to the local comic book store, Wild Comics, with me and my friends going down there and checking out the latest issues and whatnot. And got introduced to characters like Spider-Man and Batman, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and I'm talking about the thick graphic novels of not what you get now, the thick books back in the days there, and always been a true artist in heart. When I was in middle school to high school, I used to create my own comic books, with my own original characters. I used to watch Saturday morning cartoons, the Golden Age, checking out the Ninja Turtles, GI Joe, the Smurfs, Transformers, things of that, and it always enticed me. 12 o'clock at Saturday morning or Saturday afternoon, I should say, always was a downer because that's when all the cartoons were done. But you guys don't have that now. So, but you have Cartoon Network and you have cable. So you guys are good on that point when it comes to like, watching your favorite animation and whatnot. But when I back to what I was saying, I used to create my own comic books when I was in middle school to high school. It was nothing too complex. It was mainly always just a couple of sheets of paper, some panels, pencils, and inks, all drawn up together, and I'll staple them together, look like a booklet. And I would like just pass them on to all my friends. They always got a kick out of reading my stories and my biggest thing was always characterizing my friends too. I would like make them into cartoon characters, and we'll have like wacky adventures in my stories, or I'll make like vigilante type stories and whatnot, and have like action packed, drama going on, things of that in my stories, believe it or not. And it was just fun. I did it just for fun. It was great. It was like something that kept me focused and mental. My high school actually wanted me to join the the newspaper, the school newspaper, and work on comic strips that I did, weekly. Just little things that they were like and whatnot, little clips. And it was again, it was just a blast, just sharing my artwork and people watching people enjoying my drawings and enjoying the storytelling that I'm offering, visualizing it basically. And when I was looking into college and whatnot, my high school teacher, my art high school teacher, Mrs. Brown, she actually was. That's funny. My art teacher, Mrs. Brown, yeah, the name of a color, right? Brown. So she actually took interest in me and helped me out find the perfect college and whatnot to invest in. I went to Fashion Institute of Technology. I did a couple years there and majored in fashion illustration, not for the cause of drawing fashion. It's just they had a very great program to when to draw from live models, and I get to learn the anatomy a little bit better and proportions, things like that. A lot of my characters that I designed back those times, a lot of my female characters came out looking very mannish, very not feminine, because I also used to drawing very hokey, brolic, muscular characters. But learning from drawing from live models for all types of body types, I got to learn how to draw from the anatomy and proportions, and that was always one of the key elements to doing my visual storytelling. What we're seeing here now, again, this is like just a journey of my adventures. I would say at least maybe a good 8 to 10 year gap of my journey. Promoting and selling my comic books, and people just enjoying it. And I even had a small following, coming to me and purchasing the next issue of the book that I did first publish was Just Blaze, Legend of the Firing Fists. And that was a story that actually took off from a lot of evolved levels of one of my original characters when I was in high school. Believe it or not, dark vigilante, anti-hero, not like very square and for justice, that type of character, more of a lone wolf character who can manipulate fire during street combat. And of course, I did a lot of fan art to help promote and my books and whatnot, and things like that. So I'm just going to get out of this real quick because I do know we have limited time. I'm going to go right into. Whoop, I'm going to go right into the PowerPoint. All right. So, are we still there? All right.
Yes, I don't see your PowerPoint yet. I still see the.
I'm going to go right back into screen share. Pardon me.
No problem.
All right.
There we go.
You should see it now. All right. So just to let you guys know, this program, to create your own manga, comic book and manga, it's normally is like a 5 week program. So I'm going to cram a lot of information into you guys that will hopefully get the gears turning a little bit, and hopefully you'll be able to take advantage of to hopefully get your skills up. If you don't mind, if you could put in the chat the age, so I don't have to worry about going too over the top. If you don't mind sharing that to me, let me know how old you are so I can make sure that I'm not going too over and things like that. That'll be great. So let me see. All right, cool. We have some youngins here. That's cool. That's cool. And thank you for hanging out with me this evening. And I hope that you could, and when it comes times for discussion, you could share to me, what motivates you want to be a storyteller and your stories. This is not going to be an average drawing class, but will be tips on how to create your own comic book. Okay, and hopefully get the ideas flowing. So I'm going to go ahead and proceed. All right. So, 7-2. Wow. I was not doing comic books at that age, but I was in double digits though. So hopefully this won't go too over the top of your head here. But keeping this in mind, all right? 15, excellent. When you create a comic book or manga, I should say, I'm going to give you 5 key elements, 5 steps when it comes to doing that. And the first step is creativity. Step 2, storyline and background, the plot of the story. Step 3, the page layout. Step 4, get published. And step 5, promote. Now, I might have to flip those two, but I will show you some things here that hopefully that'll help. So, step 1, creativity. When you have to come up with a killer idea. With me, when I created Just Blaze, Legend of the Firing Fist, it was evolution steps of different characters that I evolved into one where I finally had this, I should say, like Frieza, his final form. And and I had to come up with a killer idea, which is, of course, is always first is the main character, evolving the story around the main character. All right. So hopefully, if you want to create a comic book, you already read a lot of comic books. I know I have in my days. That's usually a good starting point when it comes to research and whatnot. And also following along like your favorite artist or storyteller as well. I was a huge Jim Henson fan. I used to love a lot of the Jim Henson story time, also The Labyrinth, and many other films that he was involved in. Those kind of fantasy stories got the juices flowing in my brain a little bit when it comes to it. So before you get started and working on that comic book or manga, I suggest to do your homework. Do some research. Go to your local library, like I have, or go to the local magazine spot and whatnot, and or go to the bookstore, purchase some books and whatnot. If you're into Naruto, like say you want to work on the ninja comic book or a manga, I should say. Maybe you want to read up on like say stories like Naruto, which of course is very far fetched to the true stories of ninjas. You can always look up history, things like that. But again, I digress. But if you want to like create a good story, try to make sure that again do your research, see how what actually entices you a little bit when it comes to it. I'm gonna go to the next step here. All right. So when you're doing your research, like say that you want to do a story about samurais and or ninjas, or like say you want to do like a story about a hacker. Maybe you want to do something futuristic, or you want to do a story about a fighter, things like that. I'm a huge Dragon Ball Z fan, so you're gonna see a lot of Dragon Ball Z and anime things I'm going to be bringing up here to prove my point. But sketching out your character is one idea you have to look into. Like trying to get ideas and things like that. For one thing, I'm just going to go real quick here. I'm going to go into my Photoshop real fast, so I might get out of this here. But before we do, I'm going to say this for one thing: brainstorming. All right. What's the first place to start? All right, like I already said, study your favorite comic book and manga. I already mentioned that. What is that about them that you liked? What draw your attention to them? What the stories that you enjoyed about them that makes you feel like you want to get invested to find out how it ends, middle begins, middle, end. Pardon. And what are the cliffhangers? I'm a huge cliffhanger uh, proof on my comic books. It always keeps the reader want to keep coming back and see what happens next. You might want to do that. Where's the action? Uh, where are the personal moments? How much dialogue that you want to put into those moments? That can it be comfortable fit into the pages, and how many panels per page, and how many pages per issue. And I'm going to get into all that in momentarily. But what I'm going to get into next is that when it comes back to like say with character designing. Okay, so I'm going to get out of this real quick, and I'm going to go right back. All right. So as you see on the screen there, I'm into my Photoshop here. When it comes to character designing, it's always good to use references. Okay, like for instance, like say that I'm working on a protagonist character who is an assassin, and he's set on a mission to assassinate somebody. Whatever the case may be, the storyline can be and whatnot. It's good to use like references and do your research onto the matter. Like again, like I was mentioning with the samurai, you might want to look into the feudal Japan era and look up pictures or even read up on the history. Check out the mannerisms and also the culture as it well be. So when it comes to designing the character, you can look at the uniform and how they dress, the mannerisms, the rules, and the culture of being a samurai. So, but as I look into here, this is what I just came up real quick. Um, I pretty much picked these references straight from Google Image. When I was your age, I actually had to go to the local library or buy magazines and comic books for to use for help me out with references. Nowadays, you have the internet. So I what I did was I basically chose like a perfect pose. Now you gotta need some art skills. That's usually helps a lot when it comes to these things. And so for instance, I chose this pose here, as just to show, the mannerisms of the character I'm working with, and then of course I looked up some, assassination gear, different things that might help me out, that may look into that. So as you can see here, I sketched out the character, and then I took little elements of each of the reference that I use here and kind of cover them up. Like for instance, the mask and the shades for this character here, and then also some of the armored garment and the sword and things like that from this picture here, and I added onto there. Of course, again, you have to have like a certain amount of art skills when it comes to doing something like that. For instance, let's see here. Again, I've pretty much been drawing for a very long time, and again, I actually had to go to school to learn how to do the drawing, how to do art, how to perfect my art skills. Now, I never say that I was a natural talent when it came to drawing these characters. And again, I had to go to FIT to perfect my art skills and then use what they had taught me to evolve my artwork a little bit, things like that. I'm just sketching right now, just to show you when it comes to things like this, like how I get started on a sketch. You know, this is like basically the spine line here. This line here is for the eyes. This line here is for the nose. That'll be for the mouth, but I'm going to be using the mask, the scarf over his face. So it's not going to be much of that kind of covering there. Things like that. This is going to be like the shoulders, the chest here. And then I will overlay that character as I done before. As you can see there, I start pulling like the costume elements onto there. Um, I'm going to show you also a cast of characters that I'm working on. I'm working on a new book. I just finished a new book. I had a client who hired me to do a children's book not too long ago. I finished it in June, and it's going to be published really soon. It's called Kid Greatness. Um, just look out for that. It's about a boy who has the ability to make his friends' abilities go to the next level. Like, say you want to be a skateboarder, you can be a great skateboarder just by a single touch, and with the powers of friendship and believing. So anyway, that's a little plug there. So I've been working on a new comic book. I'm gonna show some clips also from my comic book or just Blazers Firing Fists, but I've been working on a new comic book called The File Chronicles Rainstar. It's based off of my partner Jay Scribble's comic book character, and these just a line of characters that I have been working with and whatnot. I'm just showing real quick the design wise of the characters, and each of them will be playing a role into the story. I'm just going to show a couple of pages here. There's Rainy, and then of course you have one of the challenges she has to overcome. You got the fight sequences and things like that. Just showing a little bit of my art skills, just a little bit. I'm not gonna give too much of a spoil. This is the full design of her with her broadsword. And she's a Rubian princess. She's actually not an Earthling. She is from the planet Rubius. She's a warrior princess who her entire planet got eradicated by a galactic tyrant who's named King Scythe, who wanted like these sacred gems on their foreheads, and that's really is the source of their powers. And they say, the more gems you would have, of course, if you've seen Infinity Wars, which, believe it or not, my wife didn't even see any Marvel comic books so that involved with that. She had came up with the story with the sacred gems on the foreheads, and he killed off all her family to get these sacred gems, and she's the last of her race. So I'm continuing the story along with that one right there to as her going on to retribution for her family. So I'm gonna go out of this real quick. Go back to my PowerPoint. All right. So hopefully I'm not going too fast, and I apologize for that. But if you have questions, put them in the chat now, and I can multitask definitely to help you out with any questions that you may have. So you saw my lineup of characters there. So basically, you have to practice drawing them, like I have. You have to practice drawing your characters. The best model sheet of drawing your character is to do a frontal, side, and back view, really. Okay, I know I have on display there. You see the character there with the full uniform, fleshed out in color, and then you see him without his helmet, and then you see his side view. I'm missing the back view. I apologize for that. But you want to have a good 360 of the character design. So, like when you start drawing the character in different angles and positions, you could be ready for that. Like, say that you want to put like a scar in the back of his head, and it shows within his hair and hair strands and whatnot. You want to make sure you put all those kind of details or different bangs of different hair designs you might want to put in the back and whatnot. A lot of people who draw comic books, especially first timers, they tend not to draw a lot of back views and whatnot because they kind of, they just mostly want to show a lot of frontal views and third angle views and side views, I should say. All right. So make sure when you design your character, do the overall side, front, and back view of the character. Make sure everything is specifically detailed into the costuming, so you know where everything is at, and also flesh out your character. Like especially if you see here on the character, he's all colored. He's you have like a sample sheet of like different colors of what it is. Like when I create my comic book, normally have like a sample swatch sheet of different colors of what flesh tones, hair tones, the costuming, things like that. And also besides those will be called the flat tones. I also have like the light tones and the shade tones, which I'll get into more specifically in details as we go further. So, like I said, you need the basic steps of drawing. So, if Oceanside do hire me to come back to do a drawing workshop, make sure you guys attend because I'll definitely show you some nice, good tips on how to draw characters in the way I just mentioned earlier, with starting with the circle and the crisscross to lay out the face and things like that. So, make sure you learn the basic drawings. They have a lot of YouTube tutorials you could go to. Again, you can follow your I am a great drawer. Yeah, all right, Victoria. I'm gonna put you that. Hopefully, you got some samples to show me. All right. And you can go to the local library. They have a lot of book tutorials you can look up and look into this in the YA section, obviously, to find out how you can improve your artwork. Or you can look at the greats, the artists that you can, you could mimic as well. All right. But,
And Kelly, I don't know if you missed the question before Victoria's. Kamani asked, how did you
oh,
learn how to draw? Because I barely know how to draw myself.
oh, okay.
It's a good
Well,
question.
how well I just mentioned that already too. It's I looked into my favorite comic books. I looked at a lot of cartoons. I try to mimic them as best my ability. Obviously I'm always learning every day. But I went to college. I went to FIT. I went to Fashion Institute of Technology, and I majored in fashion illustration. And I drew from live models. I listened to my teachers and listened to the tips they offer me when it comes to drawing. And of course, you can always read up on a lot of books and look at YouTube tutorials when it comes to it. Try to follow the steps best as possible. Um, I also will look into, on your own is buy a little sketchbook. I had and basically try to draw a lot of life drawing. Like say that you're at the mall, just for an example, and I said this to a lot of my students in the past. Say that you're at the mall just hanging out and whatnot, and you're in the food court. I had done this many times before. I'll bring my sketchbook, sit there, and just start drawing people, all their mannerisms and reactions and their poses. A lot of first timers when they draw characters, they always want to draw them looking like they're at attention, like in the military. In real life, in reality, no one really stands like that, unless if that's what the type of person you want to attend to in your stories. Like maybe he's a ex-military person, and or he's in the army, and you want to show those kind of things. But in reality, no one really stands like very straight up. They usually stand with a slouch, or they put all their weight on one leg, so they got the hip up crooked, things like that, or they have their hands on the hips, or they have their hands across, things like that. You have to look at to all the little fine details to show the expressions of the characters. You don't want to have a character drawn. yelling at somebody and they look like they're smiling. It doesn't make sense. So that's one of the things you have to look into is like looking at different expressions of how your face crinkles. The best way of doing that is looking at the mirror, trying to mimic your expressions, or if you have a friend that could help out to model for you, like a sibling, anything like that, or your mom and pops, they can like cringe their face and a little bit like show anger or show happy or sad, and you can try and mimic those features by when you're doing your drawing and whatnot. Those are always great practices. Hands and feet, same thing. Try to look at your hand and draw your hand. I used to do that a lot, but my hands always come out looking very fat and chubby, so I stopped doing that. So I looked at like picture references and stuff like that, and try to my best to mimic that. By doing very scale and stick figures first, and then overlaying the characters with a lot of details. Should I start by just drawing 3D? Well, 3D shapes. I mean, I know a couple artists that do use 3D as the help out for posing, stuff like that. You can do whatever method that's easier for you. I'm not going to tell you which is wrong or which is right. Me, I was always been a free-handed drawer. I always been drawing on paper and pencils. Just 3 years now, I've been drawing digitally fully now, and it's always been a freehand for me. I always been paper and pencil, and then I ink it and stuff like that. But and then I always use picture references just to make sure that things are looking correct. And then after a while, drawing, it actually kind of sticks in your head a little bit when it comes to like different poses and different angle shots, and you tend to find your style of drawing, like your character designs, like Toriyama, for instance, for Dragon Ball. He has a very unique style, which is very complex, but still that's his style of drawing. And every time he draws different other characters, you can always tell, oh yeah, that's Toriyama. Who drew that and designed that character. You can see the style of it all, and many other artists too, like Jim Lee from Marvel and stuff like that. You can tell like who drew what when it comes to them. Now there'll be many imitators who try to follow and copy because they're huge fans, and there's nothing wrong with that. You to find an artist that you enjoy reading or mimicking his artwork and trying to use him as a or that person I should say as an example to perfect your art skills. So definitely do that. Again, it goes back to what I was saying. Do your research, follow an artist that you really enjoy, read a lot of comic books, read a lot of mangas, try to find your own style within there, and then you could take little key elements out of that, put it in a pot, stir it around, and you can make your own concoction of your own style. So basic drawings and whatnot when it comes to it, just look up tutorials. Very easy whatnot. And then of course practice. All right. So step two. Now it's the storyline, background story, the plot. Okay, you have a killer idea. You have your protagonist. You have your hero. That you have an idea. You have the character design in mind and already drawn out. Now what you have to do is introduce this key character to usually as the protagonist, but also you have to figure out who is the villain. All right. Let me see. I see another question. How can you make a fake comic before a real one? How can you make a fake comic? Well, hopefully, when you mean by fake comic, you mean like a fan fiction. Like I know I had done that before. I make fan fiction of characters that's already been established and stuff like that, like the Flash or the Hulk. Wolverine, stuff like that. Do you mean fan fiction? I don't read manga though. All right. Well, you don't have to read manga to create a comic book. If you like comic books, then create a comic book. But I'm just giving like a overall design to both. Let me see. Oh, fan fiction. Well, I mean, it's basically the same thing as doing a real comic book. It's just the only difference is that it's not your property for one thing. And I don't recommend selling anything of that. I mean, you can use it as just a promotional piece, just to show off things like that. Just to show off your art skills, and But I will never say try to sell. Don't sell it. You can't. You're not allowed to. That's basically a copyrighted character. And if Marvel or anyone finds out that you're selling their character, and whatnot, you'll be in big trouble and whatnot. So don't do that. I won't recommend it. But if you want to promote it and stuff like that, that's definitely fine. You could put it onto your website. You could put it onto your Facebook. You could put it onto your DeviantArt. I know many artists who again, I'm gonna bring up Dragon Ball because again, I'm a huge Dragon Ball Z fan. I see many, especially plus this year alone, because there's been a lot of downtime for a lot of people. They've been putting out a lot of Dragon Ball Z fan fiction comic books out. There's loads of them. I'm like, it's like crazy, and but they don't sell them at all. They just use them just to share a story perspective that doing like an alternative universe of that story of those characters. So nothing wrong with that. You could go to webtoons, you could promote it on there. You can again DeviantArt. There's a lot of websites you can go to that many people have put up. Like different fan fiction comic books. But I digress. Let me see how to make a comic book yourself. Well, you're in the right place at the right time. But we have to go do baby steps at it all. Don't worry, we're gonna get to it. Trust me on that. I know a lot of people just want to get at it and whatnot, but these are the key elements before you even start making a comic book. You have to know how to create, overall world to it all. Like as I'm getting here, forging out the storyline. Now that you have your main protagonist, now you have to create a villain, your antagonist. You have to like have something where the reader can relate to when it comes to this. All right, you have to make the characters intriguing enough that to make them want to be invested. Want to follow along on their adventures, things like that. You want to might him or her to specifically, you want them to tone the corruption or decay or terror. I'm talking about the villain now of the entire story. You might want to, when you're creating your villain, things like that. You would need to cover who or he or she is, what is the life is like. When it comes to the point of allowing the reader to connect. Like say that, as for example, let me see here. Like I'm gonna go to like say Death Note for example, an anime Death Note. You have Light Yagami, and he's a son of a police officer, and he sees the corruption in the law and how criminals keep doing bad things and getting away with it and things like that. So he don't find this really true justice in the world, whatnot. But he may seem like a protagonist in his own world, but he might be also antagonist because he found the Death Note. I don't know how many of y'all know about the story Death Note you write the person's name and within 40 seconds that person would die with a heart attack unless you write it in specific instructions how that person died. And I'm gonna get a little dark here. I apologize for that, but it's those kind of complexities that got me invested into it. Or like say I want to get a little softer, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. You see these mutant characters, they're in the sewer and whatnot, and you find out in their background stories that they're on a retribution mission for their master Splinter to go against the Foot Clan Shredder. So you see them training and whatnot, and that's their everyday life is training, going out in the field, trying to learn how to become true ninjas and the ninja jitsu area, stuff like that. So things like that. So you have to try to create this world when it comes to it. Remember to cover all the important details of the character's life. You may want to have thought about like the story a very long time, but the reader is discovering it, may not understand it very well enough, but this skip overall some of the details, but make sure that the reader can understand how this character, the main character, is living. All right. All right. So now you have to like try to develop the character a little bit. Developing the character and the backstory and the personality. It's really the crucial features of getting the person to relate to your character. Like say for Goku, he loves to fight, but he's a gentle soul. He loves to eat, and he loves to like test his limits when it comes to it. A lot of people can relate to that. Athletes can relate to that. People who has a goal in mind can relate to that. I know I can relate to love to eat, so I will definitely be investing into that kind of story. So those are the type of things you might want to develop in the story. You don't want like a cookie cutter hero who's like, I'm in it for justice and I'm doing it because it's good and this and that. I mean, those are fine traits, but you want to have some kind of a personality with the character. You want to have something that, again, you don't want them to be like just a frame, like just like, again, a cookie cutter character just produced. You want them to get involved into it. It's important to have a sense of the character's roots, like their backgrounds, the stories, their culture, what they're involved in, things like that. Their behavior realistically, organically. Their past experience, like maybe the person was defeated long ago, but the person's still trying to get stronger and whatnot. You might want to put that into the story a little bit, and then this story about him trying to get to the next level of being strongest, or like things like that. You want to put in his failures. You don't want to keep making it seem like the guy is always always overcoming. You want to put in some failures there too as well. The uniform. You want to add some conflict, weaknesses. Weaknesses always help. You don't want to have like a character who's too OP, and he always defeats everything he faces. He needs challenges. Challenges gets people involved into the story because it makes them invest more into it. All right, so you want to add that into your heroes. Your antagonist, when you develop your antagonist, your rival. Let me see. Let me see. I see a question here. Is a comic book like a story, or is it? Let me see. I'm trying to read the rest of it. Is it like a story, or is it a long story? Is it? All right. Well, you could go either way. A comic book, most people will call more of a graphic novel. You can add in like a beginning, middle, and end, and then you can conclude it within those certain amount of pages you want to add into it. As long as the story is complete, it can be just one book. All right. You can. Some people might want to have it an ongoing series. Sometimes you can't tell your story, your full extent of the story in one book. So you might want to do several books. Like my partner Jay Scribble with Rainstar, she has four books and she's working on the fifth and whatnot to conclude that one chapter and of that character's life story. So, but if you want to just add in just a beginning, middle, and end, into one book, that's fine as well. I mean, it's nothing wrong with that. At least I know that I will feel satisfied, knowing how things turn out in one book. But most people, and they have an ongoing story to tell, and they might want to exploit that a little bit to keep the story going. Because sometimes you can't really tell a full story in such a short time. That's why a lot of times when you watch movies like superhero movies, a lot of people always feel dissatisfied because they find like they went through it so quickly and ran right through it and not really giving them the characters much development. Some people prefer a series on TV of a superhero than a movie in the movies. Of course, you can tell the story and show a lot of development in each character. So that's one of the things that you have to reverse on. Maybe you might have a character who just is set on a mission to get the princess from the villain, and end of the story done. That's if that's what you want to do, that is no problem. If you want to add a development of how that hero became a hero, and you want to put background story, or how the princess, became who she is, and how the villain became who she is, then you might want to work in investing into a series. You might want to do like a three-part book or even a five-part. It really depends on how much story you really have to tell. That's mainly how it works on to that point. So the antagonist, usually when I do the antagonist, it mainly the personality shouldn't you shouldn't really have to go too much in depth. But what I'll tell you in this in short run is that I always like to have the antagonist sometimes the opposite of the hero. Especially when it comes to personality, maybe the hero is generally generous, happy, nice, always look out for his friends, and then you may have the antagonist who's maybe, always mad, a meanie, likes to tease people, likes to make fun, or just want to cause mischief. Things like that, you might want to put those kind of traits into it. Obviously, he's the antagonist, so he might want to be the villain. What is a comic book like? A comic book like is mainly just a couple of pages which you're showing visual art of a storytelling. You basically it's just art visually storytelling on from panel to panel on pages to tell a complete story. That is what a comic book is like. It's depending on the genre of stories when it comes to it. You might want to do like an action adventure. You might want to do a fantasy. You might want to do a rom-com romance book, comic book, or you might want to do like a sci-fi, futuristic. It all depends on the type of genres you might want to work into it and to your own favor. That what a comic book is. A comic book is what a comic book is like. It's basically telling a story with visual arts from panel to panel to pages to pages. All right. So on top of that, since the comic book has a cover a lot of limited time, like I mentioned, there is no time for the reader to be really distracted so much with the antagonist. You might want to put more of the spotlight on your protagonist, at least depending on the story now. Okay, sometimes it may want to start the story with the antagonist, but again, it depends on the script you're writing when it comes down to it. So you have to really develop your character's personality traits and things like that. Now, when it comes to the look of the character, developing the design of the protagonist and the antagonist, like I said before, when you're making rival characters, it's best to make them look physically different. And also, if you're a beginner, it will be hard to make specific facial differences, especially when it comes to traits, because you may not be skilled enough to add different facial features or body types. So the best way of starting off is to like if your protagonist is has a short blonde hair, maybe you want to make the antagonist, which is the villain, have long black hair. If your protagonist wears shorts and a t-shirt, maybe you want to make your rival, wear jeans and a lab coat, or a dressed up, like fancy whatever button-up t-shirt. Make them look, different, the opposite. All right. I'm going to show you right now, as for example, with the comic book that I'm working on. I'm going to share right now. Bear with me. All right. So you guys should be able to see this. Like again, this is with the Vile Chronicles comic book that I'm working on. You see Rainy. She's a female. She identifies as a female. She's very colorful with pink bangs, blonde hair. Very feminine traits. Um, Strong, willing. You see her holding that big, huge broadsword. So you can tell that she actually has some depth into her, where she has some very good strength within her. She's nobody's princess to save, giving. And just to show one of the antagonists, one of the main antagonists, this is the character Twisted. As you can see, they're definitely opposites. He's identified as a male. He has dark hair, dark black bangs with red highlights. He has more of like a nanobite technology embedded into his body, which, if you can see with this hand here, he has like the claws, but he can make it into a regular hand. But he can manipulate that due to the nanobites in his mech form. He can change it into like a scythe, a cannon gun, or a huge fist, and use it as a weapon and whatnot. You can see he has very dark features. He has like this appendage attached to his back where he can also use as a weapon. You could use as like a whip tail, or to as a third appendage to block out or fight in defense and offense and whatnot. He's definitely has the evil look. He's a type of character who kills for fun. All right, sorry to say that, but but he's definitely the polar opposite of Rainy, as you can see here. She has pride. She likes things to be perfect. She's on a mission to destroy the person who killed her family and whatnot. But she believes in righteousness. Then you have Twisted, who kills for fun. He doesn't care about morals, things like that. So those are the key elements you need to add into your stories when it comes to like developing your protagonist antagonists. All right, I'm gonna go back to the PowerPoint. All right, so now that you got your characters developed, now it's time to send your protagonist on a quest. All right, this is when you send your character on an adventure. They are going to be set forth and then choose to be whatever goals that they have in mind. It could be a hero, could be an anti-hero, and I'll tell you the difference between the two. A hero is just a self-righteous character who believes in good and within the good of people. Like for instance, like say Superman, he is the epitome of self righteousness. He believes in the good and people, and he is an overall good guy. An anti-hero, we use this other character as an example, the Punisher from Marvel. He is a vigilante killer. He does believe in justice, but not in the right way as Superman will go. Superman will probably take the bad guy, take him to jail for justice to be tried in court. Punisher, he will go ahead and put justice in his own hands. He will be the cop, the judge, and the executioner. Another example, Wolverine as well. Characters like that, they are known as anti-heroes. All right. This is where you can add a lot of twists and turns to make the reader more invested, where you can show the development of the character in this journey to see any type of development. Like say that, for instance, like for my character Just Blaze, he's a lone wolf, but in among his journeys, he'll run into characters and that'll help him develop his story and himself a little bit, where maybe he'll get a more warmer heart and maybe let his guard down a little bit easier to accept people into his life. Things like that may help. Or twists and turns. Maybe the hero is a coward, but he gets into a situation where he has to rescue people that he loves, but he has to overcome that fear and then become the hero that he meant to be. Things like that you have to look into. All right. Remember that you want the reader to stay interested, but you don't want them to lose him. So you keep the idea to the world constricted, evolved around that main character. All right. So, what is the emotional of the story? It's not enough that you have a cool superhero, an idea, or a cool serial killer idea. Who is your characters? Who is going to introduce them to this world? What is their story? My favorite comic. What is your favorite comic books? Comics are excuse me. My favorite comics are the ones that spend as much time on the character's background story and due to this story and background to the plot, and vice versa. When you get to know more about the character. Now, it's good to see the action happen. You want to see the bams and the booms and the explosions. That's all fun and dandy, but you need some kind of development of the character to get involved in. Like you want to see the person succeed because of how they feeling and basically what is their journey to overcome. Okay. So how that helps, when you're creating this whole entire world, basically, coming up creating a world of a cast of characters, great concept of equals to the world, supporting cast. You don't want to just have it be where it's just the superhero fighting the villain from start to finish. You want to have like maybe you want to introduce the teacher to that superhero, to teach the superhero how to become a hero, in the ways of whatever culture or rules there may be. You want to add like a brother or sister. Maybe the brother got kidnapped or sister got kidnapped, and then that or he had to rescue them, things like that. Or maybe having a brother or sister with your character where there may be rivals within a ninja group, and he sees his brother and sister developing skills that he can develop or reach the next level that person can't develop, and you use that to to drive your character, your main character, to hopefully overcome those challenges. So when you have a good supporting cast, you overall creating a good world, around there. Obviously, it's depending on the era you're using, if it's feudal Japan or future, or if it's just an alternative world of what we live in reality now, but just little twists here and there. You have to keep in mind, do your research and figure that out how this world is going to be. A lot of times people do future stories. They'll always like to make the world more dark and dingy, hovercraft vehicles, future high scraper buildings, a lot of neon lights. If you're into that, obviously you're into a lot of movies that's involved with that and comic books. So make sure that's how you mainly do your research when it comes to that kind of creating that world. Do your research and make sure it fits perfectly, especially if you're doing historian type eras. You might want to read up on how the history was and the culture is and things like that, so you can make sure it makes sense and no one can question you on the development of those characters. All right. So, but if this is your first comic book, I would definitely say this. I know I brought up having a good supporting cast is great, but if this is your very first comic book, which it will be, depending on the age there, make sure that your first cast of characters is small. Don't start throwing in, uncle and sister and cousin and auntie, and then you have the bad guy's brother and sister, cousin and auntie, the next door neighbor, the mailman, all that stuff. Don't throw that in there in your story. Keep it simplex. All right. I always say is, if especially if it's a short story, like someone mentioned, how long you should make your comic book. If it's like a one book issue, keep it the cast of characters very short. All right. If anything, if I'll say either 3 to 4 characters, and I'm going to explain which of those characters. Obviously, the main hero, the protagonist. You might want to put the sidekick, if there is. If there is no sidekick, you might want to put the person who needs rescuing, and also the villain, the antagonist. Those will be your main key characters. Now you can have a support cast here and there, but don't go in depth with them. Like maybe the character goes to a certain spot, like a bar or a place to eat, like Naruto. He goes to the eating the oh my god, the noodles, whatnot, ramen. He goes to the local ramen spot, and you always see the same guy, the chef there. Obviously, they're not gonna go into the background of what that chef and how he developed become a good ramen cook. You want to just keep on to that, So, but you want to have that support character there, so the main character like Naruto can talk about his feelings and talk about like what his trials are on to the cook or chef maybe, and that'll be a good development through there. All right, and these can be the protagonists. I already mentioned that part. Yeah, so make sure you keep it small. A messed up, a bad idea was is I'm going to give an example. Back to anime is Bleach. I don't know if anyone ever watched Bleach. Um, 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 the main character, he's like a spirit guard where he kills like evil spirits, and he's a substitute for a main character. But I'm getting off the subject. The main reason I brought up Bleach is that they have tons of characters, tons and tons of characters, and sometimes you lose the main character and the storyline in the mix of all that. So you don't want to have so many characters. Now, mind you, the characters they have in there, they're awesome. A lot of them are great design wise, background stories, but you lose focus many, and it kind of defeats the purpose of the main story. Okay, so when the plot thickens, yeah, don't worry, I'm going to get to it. When the plot thickens, you might want to go ahead and have some kind of disturbance happen. This is when obviously say that the main character gets to rescuing the person that they have to from the villain. All right, this is when the plot thickens. You can have the hot lava everywhere, mangas, like roaring. There's the 10,000 henchmen you have to go across just to reach the person to rescue. Things like that. You want to like cause some kind of disturbance where, of course, that it doesn't make it, it's not the average storyline of the character. Like say that the character, he been defeating each villain along the journeys, but now he has to get to the final boss, and he is like crazy, and it's not working out at the best way as it normally will for this hero. So you want to have the reader invested into the plot thickens, and I'm gonna get to the next point here, building the conflict of the climax. So far the hero, basically, he's been defeating all the villains and obstacles that he already defeated. Now it's time for the big boss. Now you don't want to make the character too OP. When I mean OP, overpowered, where you could already tell like, this guy is just going to defeat the villain, no problems, easy peasy, lemon squeezy. You don't want that. You want to have it in a way where he's struggling and basically trying to overcome the villain and whatnot. You want to make sure that you keeping the reader expense on their toes mainly, and want to know, oh my God, how this is going to end? Is it going to end well for the hero? Is he going to save the person or save the day? You want to have a huge climax where it shows that it's not an easy task as he thought it would be for his hero. So you want to make sure you have the plot thickens when it comes to it. That will keep the audience involved into the story and want to keep reading along the way. You don't want to make it seem like it's just a simple, all right, one punch and then the villain's down and then yay, all right, he saved the day. You want to show some kind of struggle. You want to show like if there is a challenge. Okay. Now the end of the story. This is when the reader sees everything falls into place. You make sure at the end of the story it gives a filling, satisfying accomplishment. You don't want to have any type of. Go ahead, Victoria. You go ahead and write your comment. You could write in the chat. All right. All right. You want to make sure that the end of the story that it is fulfilled. You want to make sure that it's there is no loopholes, nothing that you could say that it's not complete. All right. If it works for you, it should work for the reader. And it's gonna be a few minutes. Give me a few. All right, and then I'll open up for questioning. Let it marinate. Once you have the comic book ready and finished, let it marinate in your head for a while. Make sure that everything jumps at you immediately. That be patient. Don't throw it out there so quickly. You want to make sure that the ideas actually do work well. You run them through your head over and over and over, and then make sure that you actually talk, question yourself. Does this make sense? And share the concept with others. Maybe get feedback. It's also when you ask for concept. When you ask concept from others, you could draw a crowd to yourself a little bit. Promoting it in that way, in that manner, so you gain a following. So if you ask them for their opinions, they feel happy to be involved into your storytelling. Like say you want to does the color scheme work well for this character? Does the villain design look great? Does the story make sense to them? Obviously don't share it to the world because what's the sense of them buying your book? But share it with a small few, close ones, friends, family. Maybe a couple of artists that are already into the game. You might want to share it with them a little bit and things like that. So you want to get their expertise onto it. All right. So now we're going to go to step three, which is the page layout, reviewing the script, pick a cast of characters, plan out. This is our overall review. Pick a cast of characters, plan out your story, organize your ideas, vary the sizes of your shots, sketch your comic book, add textbooks, review your pages, and then ink your artwork. All right. So I'm just going to go out of this real quick. I'm going to go into this right here. Now, when I start doing this, let's see here. We'll go into slide here. This is actually a sample of my book, Just Blaze, Legend of the Firing Fist. Let me just go back into here. And this is basically some of the pages here you're gonna be looking at. This is the cover that I did for it. This was for issue 2. And then there's my cast of characters. You got Just Blaze there. You got the cast of characters there. Then I start off with a monologue of what's going on. This was last time on Just Blaze. And then I did like the panels. You got like the Outlook panel. You got the Zoom panel, things like that. You're seeing there's a lot of conflict. You see the main protagonist going up to one of the henchmen, and then you're seeing the fight scenes here and there. You got like speech bubbles. That's Just Blaze punching out one of the henchmen out. Then you're adding like the speech bubbles, things like that. I had to lay out all this, of course. This was all pencil sketch out first, and then I pretty much upload it into my computer, and I start, I inked it. Excuse me, I inked it, and then I upload it to my computer and use Photoshop to do the coloring editing to all this. Of course, I always have a script writing to this, and also a storyboard, which I'll get into. But you can see like from like the pages here with the action scenes and whatnot. I look into a lot of comic books and manga especially. I'm a huge Dragon Ball Z fan, like I said. A lot of the artwork in this time was very influenced to Toriyama's work in anime. So that was one of the influences that I use to do the character designs, and of course of certain mangas and comics that I read to do like the panels and whatnot from jumping from one panel to the next. All right. I'm going to go back into here. So let's see here. So this right here, oops. All right, I'm going to go back. Sorry. Apologies. So I'm going back into here. This was like from my new book that I'm working on. Again, this was a couple of panels that I did. This was one of the pages that I did. A little gory there, so I apologize for the young-hearted there. This is my main protagonist, Rainy, and she's witnessing all this, what's the happenings that's going on on this page, and then of course I'm going to show you like the storyboard first that I work with first. This was like just a rough sketch that I did, of that for that page before I start, laying out the page a little bit. Just start inking. Obviously, I added a few things on top there and rearranged the pages, panels a little bit. So you can see here, I sketch everything out. Also, you have to have like a script written out there, just to describe each panel when it comes to it. Like say from page 7, you will have like a description of what's going on into that page. You put panel 1, this is going on in panel 1, and what's going on in panel 2, and then you have like a little, another paragraph there, putting in like the word text, the bubble speech you call it, into what's going on into the panel. So each panel you will write out the description of what's going on in those panels, and then you'll have a separate paragraph with the script of the speech bubble of the verbal text that's going on into each page on each panel, I should say. All right, Victoria, I'm sorry you have to leave. Have a good one. Stay safe and healthy, okay? And good luck onto your comic writing. And then here's another panel that I worked on onto the page. This was actually a promotional page and whatnot that I did. I was just practicing a couple of future pages that I had in mind. This is not gonna be in the first book, but I just wanted to like get these things out real quick as a promotional piece. I worked on like a couple square panels there. Then you got the speech bubbles, and then you got the conflict at the bottom end there. And then, of course, a couple of character sketches here. And also, this is another book that I'm working on. It's called The Basket Man. It's a pretty much of a nightmare Freddy Krueger tale for toddlers. Based on real life stories. It's basically based on about my son overcoming his own boogeyman. And still working on that. There, I had to work on another book for a client of mine that kind of delayed the development of this. But I should have had this ready by now. But it's still in working development, and hopefully this book will be out soon. But it'll be hopefully a book for children of all ages that maybe hopefully they could overcome their own personal boogeyman. So this is the cover design that I had here. All right. So I'm gonna go really fast because I know I'm stressed on time here, on to the technical side of it all when it comes to creating your own comic book. And bear with me, I'm gonna go really fast with this, but you can always research on this on your own when it comes down to it. Um, when it comes to the page layout, the standard comic book size is 7 inches wide by 10 inches by 0.5 inches. That is the norm of a size of a comic book page. All right. The industry standard is usually 32 pages to 48 pages. You don't always have to go that much. You could do a standard 28-page book, which is usually on a small story scale. As long as you go by 4 pages to the printer standard, it has to go by fours. So if you want to do a story with only 8 pages, that is also fine. 12 pages, that is also fine. But it usually has to go by fours. The standard size page of a template is 7 inches by 10.5 inches. Okay. And of course, you have the trim line, which is usually, if you see on the diagram there, is the red. If your pages bleed, meaning by that, if their images is off the page, goes off the page, that's where it will cut off. It will cut off on those pages, usually a 1/4 inch in on the page. All right, that'll be the trim line. The margin area, that will be the empty space. Like say you're not doing any bleeding, that will be the empty space. Like say you're just doing the standard norm panels, like just the square panels on a page, mostly like on mangas and comic strips and books. It'll be like the white empty edges around the pages here. That will be the margin area. Those are where you don't put any type of speech bubbles in and designs and things like that. Okay. And then the blue area, that's the live area. That's usually a 6.25 by 9.3 in on the page. And stand in the middle of the page. This is where all the action happens. If you're not doing any bleeding onto the page, this is where the live action has happened. It's all the panels. This is where all from panels, your artwork, your speech bubbles should be all in this square. If it's in the red square or the orange square, especially if it's in the red square, it's going to get cut off. Any action or speech or writing is going to get cut off in those red areas. So you want to make sure that it's actually in centered on the page there. All right. I'm going to go through this. Manga page is standard size is 5.5 inches wide by 7 inches and 75. That's like 3/4 of an inch. All right. In a template. Standard manga pages is usually 20 to 40 pages, 20 to 40 pages. Same thing goes for it. It has to be by fours. All right. I'm not gonna go too much into the bleeding and all that kind of thing. It's basically the same concept goes for the manga pages when it comes to that. If you see the diagram, don't have anything in the red or the orange. It has to be in the blue center there. I actually got this template from one of the digital printers called Kablam, or you can look it up on their website, or you can just look up page layout, and it will give you the same where things supposed to be cropped and inch sizes when it comes to it. When I start a page document on my Photoshop, as usually that's the standard size I would use. It's basically 7 by 10.5 inches when it comes to the template. And then I'll start drawing in the panels, putting the squares and the speech bubbles in, things like that. All right. So now you got everything done. You got the pages done. They're all inked and whatnot, colored. They're all ready, good to go. Now you're ready to publish. Yay! So now I really should call this the promoting part of it all. When you got everything done, you might want to start promoting your pages, especially if you're an indie comic book creator like myself. When I say indie comic book writer, meaning is I'm independent. I'm not with any type of corporate like Marvel, DC, or Image, anything like that. But if you are looking to get published by a professional and you don't want to be an indie writer, you can do that. I'll get into details how you can work with that. But if you're an indie comic book creator, you have to learn to promote yourself, usually online websites, join contests, broaden your exposure a little bit, locate comic book publishers online or go to conventions like you saw in the pictures in the beginning. I go to conventions and I sell my comic books that way and I gain a following that and that manner. Okay. But if you want to get published, try to find a publisher. Like say you want to go into Image Comics or Marvel or DC or Viz Media, any of those kind of publishers, you have to go onto their website and look into their submission guidelines carefully, especially nothing where the publisher requires a query letter or either accept unsolicited manuscripts. What I mean by that is that some publishers only ask for requests for a script from you. Not all of them will say that they need they will you could just send a script to them and they'll look at it. Some of them don't want that. They have to request it to you first. Choose sample of your work, all right, and have a script written out, like a summary of your art, of your story, and then you can submit it to the publishers. And but make sure you check out their guidelines. They have sometimes they have specific guidelines when it comes to how you submit your work to them. And then you could go and get published. But those who don't accept unsolicited manuscripts, you could always send a query letter. You can. What I mean by that is a letter of interest where I'm a say that I am a upcoming artist. I got a story idea. Hopefully, you guys be looking be interested in. And here is my story. Like, give my very short summary in a couple of sentences. Most publishers who they will ask for a manuscript, they will ask for at least 4 chapters of your book. Like, say you have like a 10 chapter book, they'll ask for the first 4 just to see where your story is going. And if they show interest, they'll ask for the whole entire thing. They would, don't go into throwing your manuscript at a publisher and you're like halfway into the story. Some publishers will want to know how the story begins and how the story ends because they're going to be investing money into your story. So they want to make sure that the story is not to their liking. They may not like how the story turns out at the end, and they might want to change that. So make sure you do that. But if you're an indie comic book publisher like I am, they have many digital formats you might want to look into. I myself, I deal with a publisher, a printer place called Comic Book Printing, comicbookprinting.com. They're actually stationed here on Long Island, so it's great for me. So I could just pick up my books locally. I don't worry about paying for shipping. And they actually have their own online store where you can sell your books through their online store. Many of these other places do have also their online store as well. You can go through Kablam, you can go through Indie Planet, you go through Express Publishing, Comicology. Just for an example, with comic book printing, I have right here their online store, which they call Comic Book Flea Market. I'm right in the comic book section under anime, believe it or not. Me and my partner took off the whole section. You could not find our book here. Yeah, it's the whole entire section. You have my books there, Just Blaze, Legend of the Fiery Fist, and you also have my partner's book there, Rainstar, The Ruby Princess, and whatnot. And you order it there online through Comic Book Flea Market, Comic Flea Market that they provide the service from. So you can do many things of these methods to get your book out there. It just all depends on you and your time and how invested you are. But if you are looking to do this to make money, I won't suggest it to do it for that reason. I suggest to do it because you are a storyteller and you have passion and you want to share of your art. That's the only way you can actually enjoy. If you are successful in doing your books, God bless you. That is great. That is awesome. But if you're in it just to make money and you're not successful, you're not going to have a good time. I always enjoy that people like my stories and they always message me or find me at a convention and be like, "Oh, when is that book coming out, yo? Or when that issue 3 coming out? Or what do you have planned for that character or certain thing?" Or they tell me suggestions of what I could do with my stories. So I love it when they get involved and they get invested and they like where I'm going with it. So I'm not going to end it from there, and I'm going to open up the questions. Please, you can mute yourselves if you want, and I'm open to it for any questions you may have. Really appreciate the Oceanside Library for having me come in and hanging out with you guys this evening, and I really wish you guys luck. So go right ahead. If you have questions, let me know.
Thanks, Mikkel. Hold on one second. I'm just going to end the recording here so we could have a comfortable discussion. Hold on. Thank you.